I think this offseason might be the most craziest ever because I think what you have right now is you have the parity
English
in the
class
league.
sucks.
It's so thin right now, like as far as the thin line of what you can win a championship or you might be falling into the lottery. And I think the ability to go out there and improve your team and get there to championship level, I think that's on the minds of everyone around the league. So how can you elevate your team?
Yo, when he raised up and shot the ball, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be close to this. So I'm just going to play hard and contest, man, because either you're going to foul him or he's just going to make the shot. He misses all on him.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Elite Fantasy Sports with me, Mike Zakarian, and we got another edition of some off-season spice. You heard Shams. We're about to get into some of the craziest or most craziest or whatever grammatically incorrect thing he said on the McAfee show, NBA off-season in history, apparently. And if that's going to happen, you know our guy Kevin Durant is going to be involved. If it's going to be some spice, if it's going to be some drama, KD is going to be involved. So in this video, what we're going to do is take a look at 3 different potential Kevin Durant trades that would put him on somewhat of contending teams. We're going to be using our friends over at Spotrac to use the trade machine, and of course the Brooklyn Nets are just legally required to be in every single one of these trades because Brooklyn's one of like the few teams with some space and flexibility while everyone else is getting hung out to dry by the collective bargaining agreement, the second apron. Go ahead, take a drink. We said second apron.
First beer of the night.
But before we get into it, if it's your first time here, appreciate you tuning in. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, knock down that notification bell too, so you know the next time we're dropping some of that sweet content. But let's dive in, and we're going to start by putting the Slender Man with the Slender Man. We want those tall, skinny, frail bigs playing next to each other, and that's the San Antonio Spurs and the Phoenix Suns getting involved. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. It took me way too long to figure out how to do this because 3-team deals are doing like that crazy Charlie Day math. So let's dive in. This 3-team deal is going to be including the Brooklyn Nets, the Phoenix Suns, and the San Antonio Spurs. So let's start with the Nets. This is what the Brooklyn Nets would be acquiring in this deal. They'd be getting the Devin Vassell contract. Devin Vassell got 4 years left, making $30 million. Keldon Johnson, who's got 2 years left on his deal at $19 million. And then the 2027 first-round pick that is actually, San Antonio has the rights to it right now. It's from the Atlanta Hawks, from that DeJounte Murray deal that went, a little nutso not too long ago. So that's what Brooklyn would receive there. The Suns, on the other hand, would get Nicholas Claxton from the Brooklyn Nets. They'd also get DeAnthony Melton. That's an expiring contract. Totally forgot Melton was on the Nets. And then Zaire Williams at $6 million, who's also an expiring contract. But on top of that, they would get the 2025 first-round pick from the San Antonio Spurs. That's not the number 2 pick, but the number 14 pick. They'd also get the 2028 first-round pick that the Phoenix would have a swap right with. That pick actually comes from the Boston Celtics. Now, normally you'd think a Boston Celtics pick is a late first round, but that actually has a little bit more enticing value to it because we don't know what the Celtics are going to look like in 2 years with Tatum coming back from injury, and who knows who's actually on that team at this point. And then they would also get the 2030 first round pick from the San Antonio Spurs. Now, both that Celtics pick and the Spurs pick, those last two, 2028 and 2030, would actually be pick swap. And now the Spurs here would acquire Kevin Durant, and then they would also get Trendon Watford from the Brooklyn Nets. So yes, I'm sure the Spurs would not be thrilled to part ways with Devin Vassell. Keldon Johnson, former Team USA member, by the way, has been an important piece for them, but this would allow them to keep the number 2 overall pick. It would keep Stephon Castle on the team. You would still have, let's look at their roster actually right now, because they would still have, obviously, Wembanyama. They would still have De'Aaron Fox, who they just traded for. They've got Harrison Barnes there, which would still make sense as a vet. Chris Paul will most likely be on another team. It also allows them to keep Sohan. So now you're looking at a wild-ass roster, right, where you assume Fox and Castle starting in the backcourt, and then they can get crazy. They can go Barnes at the 3, followed by KD at the 4, and Wemby at the 5. Really gives them a lot of flexibility with Sohan coming off the bench. They still have guys like Champagnie. They'd have Malachi Branham still there. And then who knows, maybe Bismack Biyombo expiring contract, but maybe they go out there and get a little funky. Now, I don't know if Phoenix thinks that's enough for Kevin Durant. And I don't know what the value for KD looks like, mainly because I just don't know what kind of leverage Phoenix has, because it's so clear that Kevin Durant is not going to be on that Phoenix Suns roster next year. But if everyone knows that, you get to slowly bring the asking price down, because we know Ishbia is not going to want to come back with this same roster next year and pay that crazy money for a team that's going to win like 35 games with just the most incredible toxic vibes of all time, right? But that type of roster, KD and Wemby, I mean, the offensive stuff that they'd be able to do, defensively, it'd be a little bit weird, right? Because that's a combined 180 pounds between your 4 and your 5. And if they're not able to get one of those like veteran minimum deals for a decent big, I'm not saying somebody that could come in there and play like 35 minutes, but you're going to want a little bit of beef, right? You want a little Steven Adams that can come in and give you some oomph. Maybe you get Steven Adams backup, Jacques Landale. Maybe he gets on the move. But the Spurs would absolutely need to beef it up a little bit. But man, you want to talk about a win now move without sacrificing all of your future, right? Because those Spurs first round picks, yes, they look nice on paper. The Atlanta one looks better, and so does the Boston one. But the other Spurs picture, you're like, well, Wembanyama's probably going to be on this team, right? So, like, how far down does that first-round pick actually fall? And again, Wemby, Fox, KD, Castle, and then at the number 2 pick, we keep forgetting they still have the number 2 pick. So maybe they even include that in some sort of deal. If they know they're getting KD, maybe they try to move that as well and just go all in right now. Again, I can't tell what kind of intel Shams has that makes him think that we're going to have this insane postseason, right? But anyways, I really like that that potential landing spot, for KD. I think that would just be a lot of fun. Let's do another one here. I've got 2 more potential trades for you. Next up, we're going to be looking at, actually, you know what? I'll play a video for you so you know exactly what we're looking for.
Detroit basketball! Detroit basketball! Detroit basketball!
All right, here we go. It's the Detroit Pistons. You guessed it, the Brooklyn Nets are once again included in this one. So here we go. Brooklyn this time is going to acquire Tobias Harris, because that's $25 million. Marcus Sasser, $2.75 million. Then Brooklyn would also get the 2031 first-round pick from Detroit, and then they would get this year's second-round pick. So they do get a first, and then they spend a little bit of money on Harris and Sasser. The Pistons would just get KD. That's the only thing they're getting. And then the Suns, on the other hand, they would acquire Nicholas Claxton. Welcome back to the Suns. They'd also get Beef Stew, so add a couple of bigs. The Phoenix is probably going to be moving off of those guys as well, but that's to make the money work. And then they're going to get a 2028 first-round pick from Detroit and a 2030 first-round pick. Now, of course, I'm kind of focusing on the team that's receiving Kevin Durant. I'm trying to do my best to make sure that Phoenix and whatever the third team, Brooklyn Nets, are getting back so that they would still be enticed to do something like this to get future first-round picks. But looking at the Detroit roster, for them to make a move like this, they're really just forfeiting draft capital and Tobias Harris, who obviously was an important part in their run. But this would give them Cade Cunningham, obviously, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, who they're getting back from injury, and then Kevin Durant as a starting 5. And you look at that dumpster fire of an Eastern Conference, and you're running out that 5 of a Cade, Jaden backcourt, Asar Thompson either at the 3 or the 4, KD at the other 3 or the 4, and then Jalen Duren at the 5. They would still need to figure out what their bench is going to look like. Does Beasley come back, or is he too expensive? So you go get Tim Hardaway Jr. instead, or Dennis Schroeder comes back. They still have the young guy in Ron Holland, who honestly might have to be included in one of these deals to actually make it a little bit more enticing. You still got some other fellas like Lindy Waters III, B-Ball Paul Reed's there. But anyway, Simone Fontecchio, who's probably going to get moved, honestly, in one of these deals to make it work. But again, I'm just trying to find KD. I've just decided I need Kevin Durant playing playoff basketball. And I like the idea of KD coming to the East because, like we said, dumpster fire, there's going to be a cleaner path forward. And I do think if one of these contending teams in the Eastern Conference puts their foot down to make a move right now, they all of a sudden have a foothold on the Eastern Conference, because we know the Celtics are taking a step back. Cleveland, we got reports today that maybe Garland or Allen are going to find themselves in a new home, that they were not deemed untouchable. We have no idea what Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks are going to do. The Sixers, it's Philly. Does something bad will happen. Orlando, will they actually get a guard? I don't know. So if you put KD on this team, I think Detroit's already considered a 50-plus win team, and maybe like a 2 seed in the East. Could they leapfrog the New York Knicks? I don't know. Maybe that's too exciting. All right, we've got one more for you, and we're not allowed to do it. We're not allowed to do any sort of trade stuff unless we talk about the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I think this is the one that's least likely to happen out of all of them, but that doesn't mean we're not going to do it. So guess what? Nick Claxton, you are back involved again. It's not popping up in the same way that I would like it to, so I'm just going to read it off to you. Nick Claxton here, as you can see, the $27 million. Welcome back to Phoenix. That's where you will always be, is on the Phoenix Suns. The Lakers, on the other hand, they're going to have to get real feisty. They're going to be sending Rui Hachimura over to Brooklyn. They're going to be sending Austin Reeves over to Brooklyn. Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent are going to be on their way to Phoenix. And then for draft picks, they're going to be sending some of those out as well. So the 2028 first rounder is going to go to Phoenix. Then they're going to send the 2030 to Phoenix as a pick swap. The 2031 will go to Brooklyn. And then this year's 2025 will go to Brooklyn as well. And then the Phoenix Suns obviously will be sending KD to the Lakers. Now, this pretty much depletes the Lakers roster if you look at it, right? That's going to leave them with the starting five of LeBron, Luka, Kevin Durant. I don't know. They lose Rui, they lose Reeves, they lose Kleber, they lose Gabe Vincent. So then it's a lot of Jared Vanderbilt. You're going to have to make up with Jackson Hayes. I don't know. Does Markieff Morris start playing? This one is not happening, okay? As much as I would like this one to happen, I like the idea of KD playing with LeBron late in his career. It's not going to happen. So that's unlikely. The Spurs, most likely, followed by the Pistons. I think both of those they have actual chances of happening. Here's a couple other ones that we haven't talked about. The New York Knicks are on the brink of being eliminated in the playoffs, and I do think there's going to be an overreaction of like, is this a winning core? I just want you to rewind a minute and a half ago where I talked about what the Eastern Conference actually looks like. I don't think there's a need to panic just yet, Bing Bong Boys, but there is a world where KD finds his way to Madison Square Garden. We know he loves his ties with New York, so that is a possibility. And there's two other teams in the state of Texas, right? You have the Dallas Mavericks, who I don't think financially want to do this. I don't think it makes sense really with their roster, so I don't see that happening. But Nico Harrison has proven that if you think it's a smart idea, he's going to do the opposite. But the other one is the Houston Rockets, who have a ton of pieces, both draft picks, draft capital, but also some young key players like the Reed Shepherds of the world, Tyree Easons. It sounds like almost everybody would be available but Amin Thompson. And you have the contract of Fred VanVleet, who helps you get to that number for it to make sense. But I don't necessarily think Houston is at the top of KD's list. The San Antonio Spurs are the one that's sticking out to me the most based on the recent reporting that we've seen from ESPN and other league sources. So there you have it. That's the KD. This is video number 2 of our off-season deep dive. We're going to be continuing to crank these out a few times a week. So again, I appreciate you hanging out. Where would you like to see Kevin Durant land at the start of next season? Thanks for hanging in there. Hit the subscribe on the way out. We'll see you next time.